This is how world markets reacted to the Bush, Paulson, Pelosi, McCain, Obama bailout plan last week. In just 1 week, no less than $2.4 trillion in paper went up in smoke right behind me. The financial crisis is global. Last Friday, everyone was expecting some solace via the communiqué from the G7, the finance ministers from the group of 7 leading capitalist powers meeting in Washington. Paul Krugman in the New York Times said it was written in code. There's no other way to interpret things like ensure that our banks and other major financial intermediaries, as needed, can raise capital from public as well as private sources. Krugman noted this is, and I quote, the United States arguing with itself as well as with others. Then Secretary Paulson announced that the Bush administration would nationalize some US banks, sort of. Will that be enough to calm the markets? Hardly. No one has said a word about the massive US trade deficit. Why? Because it's taboo. Corporate US offshores everything, and when these products enter the US to be sold, they qualify as imports. With a smaller deficit, the world would not have been so polluted by a hurricane of toxic US financial instruments. Paul Craig Roberts, former Assistant Secretary of the Treasury during Reagan, insists the money should be used to refinance the troubled mortgages, as was done during the Great Depression. And he points out that the US budget deficit can be eliminated by halting the Bush regime's gratuitous wars and by cutting the extravagant US military budget. No one is holding their breath, especially when Paulson would name a fellow Goldman Sachs, Neil Kashkari, to oversee the $700 billion bailout. Paulson still has not disclosed how much of the $700 billion will buy toxic assets and how much will buy equity stakes in banks. What is known is that he will hire 5 to 10 asset management firms to do the whole thing, with the Treasury insisting there will be a firewall to prevent conflicts of interest. Talk about the fox guarding the henhouse. New York City University professor Nouriel Roubini, who predicted the crisis 2 years ago, writing at the RGE Monitor, is more Dr. Doom than ever. He says, the US and advanced economy's financial system is now headed towards a near-term systemic financial meltdown. As day after day stock markets are in free fall, money markets have shut down while their spreads are skyrocketing and credit spreads are surging through the roof. Roubini stresses that 55% of global GDP, that's the US, Eurozone, UK, Canada, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, are already in recession, plus financial crisis, plus banking crisis. And he warns that anything short of radical and coordinated actions may lead to a market crash, a global systemic financial meltdown, and to a global depression. There's no leadership anywhere, despite rumblings from the White House. So far, Paulson seems to be more worried about ideology and private profits. The market verdict has been unforgiving. Meanwhile, where's the discussion about the US budget deficit and the US military budget? Where are John McCain and Barack Obama?